You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel. And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as tonight your Indiana Hoosiers outlast Morehead State in Simon Scott Assembly Hall, 69-68. Indiana wins the race to 69, getting the 1-point victory over Morehead State. Never in doubt, right? Never in doubt. You know, a lot of teams, they use these non-conference cupcake games to win by 25, 30 points, improve their metrics, improve their net ranking. Not your Indiana Hoosiers. We want these games to be entertaining, to be 40-minute games, to give the fans their money's worth when they go to the game. And so once again, Indiana lets a team that it should beat hang around, but then pulls it out in the end. So Indiana moves to 8-3 overall. And, you know, really what this win did is just avoided complete disaster and really putting yourself behind the 8 ball from an NCAA tournament perspective. Because right now, the best thing on Indiana's NCAA tournament resume is the lack of a really bad loss, which this would have been. So there was a lot of bad basketball to talk about, and we're going to talk about it. Obviously, we give credit to the guys for coming together and winning that game at the end, which is exactly what they needed to do. But oh boy, the Hoosiers avoid disaster in a game that they really needed. I'm your host, Jared Morris, here with Coach Brian Tonsoni, Ryan Phillips, Andy Bottoms, all of us here for tonight's show. And let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And really, for me, two moments kind of tied for the banner moment. It was 61-46. Everything looked lost. Indiana was not getting anything going offensively. And Trey Galloway did what a senior needs to do. He stepped up and provided a spark, making a three-pointer. That began Indiana's 17-0 run, which was punctuated several minutes later when it was 64-62 by Trey hitting another three-pointer to put Indiana up 65-64. The Hoosiers were then, of course, outlast Morehead State from there. And look, we're going to talk a lot about Anthony Walker tonight, as we should. He had 18 points and 9 rebounds, several huge plays for Indiana in the first half and second half. But Trey Galloway, you know, he obviously wasn't as prolific as he was against Kansas, only 14 points, kind of struggled to get himself going throughout the night. But when Indiana needed production with their backs against the wall, Trey did what a senior guard has to do, which is just find a way to produce. And those 2 3-pointers that he hit obviously were huge. The first one to just rescue Indiana from the complete doldrums that they were in, and the second one to give them the lead that they would not give up to escape with this 1-point victory. So hat tip to Trey for coming through when his team really needed him. Okay, let's talk about our presenting sponsor. Our banner moment, as always, brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their 7th season sponsoring the Assembly Call and their 3rd as the presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. As you know, Home Field has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you will find anywhere. And since IU is their flagship school, you know that more high-quality gear with unique IU logos from the past is always right around the corner, because they're always evolving and trying new stuff and adding new schools and adding new items that's there. And that's why you should follow them on Twitter, get the emails, get the app, however you want to stay connected to Home Field Apparel. Because what's great, not only do you get alerted when new stuff is coming, so you get a sneak preview on stuff that may be limited in quality so you can get your order out there, but they also do a lot of flash sales. So you can always use our promo code HOME23 and get 15% off your first order, but a lot of times they'll have 20% sales on there like they did for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So you always want to keep your eye out, see what their latest messaging is. Andy tonight is modeling from the Home Field collection the Washington Huskies hoodie as he prepares for the college football playoff, which is always nice. Coach, I think, is wearing a UCLA hoodie. So all very nice to see here from our friends at Home Field Apparel. So anyway, Ryan giving the thumbs down to that. But look, no matter what
UCLA
you buy,
and Washington, guys, leave me alone. God.
We're just welcoming our future Big Ten brethren. Yeah. What's wrong with you? Why are you not more welcoming?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, support our friends at Home Field Apparel. They're awesome. Homefieldapparel.com, promo code HOME23. We'll get you 15% off. Again, homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right, guys. Well, it is time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. We'll start with Coach. who had some nice choice words before we went live. So we'll see what the flavor is here for his opening statement.
A lot of bleeps.
Great win, fellas. Proud of you. Great win. No, seriously. I expect more from the coaching staff than what we saw tonight. I expect more from the men who wear Indiana across their chest and wear candy stripes than I saw tonight. I understand Coach Woodson played for Indiana, and I understand everyone loves him, but this program needs to be better, and it needs to be better in a hurry from top to bottom. I'm done.
Coach's rant. I like it.
Take that to the school board. Okay. All right. Andy, we'll go to you. Your bottoms line on this difficult IU performance to process.
I mean, about the only good thing that you can say outside of Anthony Walker is that, this team avoided abject disaster by coming back late in the game. But, clearly a message was sent at halftime based on the way they came out in the beginning of the second half, although that they weren't really able to sustain that in large part. But I think, and we may get into the schedule conversation, later after I jam a pen in my eye. But you can probably excuse a little bit of the early game flatness, lackadaisical play, lack of focus, all those kinds of things. It just went on for far too long. And I think that's probably what Coach is alluding to from a coaching standpoint. Like, if you could light a fire in them at halftime, like that needed to happen pretty early. It wasn't till the first media timeout. And I think multiple of us had texted in our group chain, like, they look really flat. Again, maybe excusable for the beginning, but for a long stretch of play, and really the worst of it was the end of the first half when they just couldn't make anything, really made no huge effort to get the ball inside, which is their bread and butter, and scored on, 2 of the last 12 possessions of the half against a team that was in massive foul trouble, really couldn't handle you off the dribble, just really let Morehead State off the hook over and over and over again, to a point where they dug themselves a hole that it seemed like they weren't going to get out of for a while. And the typical guy gets super hot for the other team and can't miss anything because you let him get comfortable and all those things. So give him some credit for pulling this one out at the end. But for a team that has shown, no matter the rest that they get and no matter the opponent, they are unable to bring a focused effort in games like what they had tonight. And that showed up yet again, and shows ultimately a lack of maturity and leadership. You can say that that's from the bench. You can say that that's from the players, but like, programs who get to where IU claims to want to be don't have repeated performances in these situations like this. They just don't. Might have a few minute stretch here and there, might even have a half here and there. But in almost every half of basketball that IU has played this year against what is deemed to be a far inferior team to them, they have played pretty much like they played in this game. And for as important as the Big Ten season has become, it seems to me implausible for a team that struggles that much to get up for these games. They're going to have to get up for and win a vast majority of the Big Ten games that are left. This is a chance for them to show that they can do that, and they simply didn't. And they did basically the bare minimum to get out and get the win.
Yep. All right, Ryan, over to you.
Yeah, look, you're playing Morehead State at home at Assembly Hall. It shouldn't take a 20-4 run over the last 9 minutes to win the game. Barely. And you only won it because they didn't get the right shot at the end, honestly. I thought the defense was good and all that, but they took a bad shot. They played right into exactly what you wanted. Can anybody on this roster who has played basketball their entire lives make a damn shot? Like, seriously, and again, I don't blame just the players. Where is the shooting in this program? They were 3 of 16 from 3, and one of those was from Anthony Walker, where I think everybody in the arena screamed, please do not take that shot.
The ultimate no, yes. We were down 50-39 when he made that. It was
and
huge.
They were 16 of 28 from the free throw line. And these weren't like random players taking free throws. Malik Renew was 0 of 3. Gabe Cupps, 1 of 3. Caleb Banks, 1 of 2. Anthony Walker, 3 of 5. Trey Galloway, 0 of 2. Like, these are guys who play for you, and they can't make free throws. Like, 57% in a home game against a bad team is disgraceful if you're Indiana. And to shoot 18.8% from the three-point line. And I said it online or on Twitter, and it was just like Indiana's down 13 points with 10 minutes left in the second half, and nobody on the team can make a shot. This is why shooting in your program, not having shooting in your program is important. Now, look, they were able, thankfully, Morehead State was in such foul trouble, they could attack them inside, get to the free throw line, all of those things, even though the free throw line didn't really help them. But still, they were able to attack inside and win that way. Got 1 3-pointer from Trey Galloway late that was in a big moment, as Jared pointed out. But, you can't make comebacks. Well, they got 2 in the game, but they had the one big one that gave them the lead. Now, you can't make comebacks without being able to shoot the damn ball. And for some reason, for the last regime and this one, shooting is not a priority. It has been, we beat this dead horse all the time. It's like, you need to be able to hit a jump shot in a key situation, and nobody can do it. There is nobody on that bench I look at and think, that guy, get him in, he can shoot a 3. There's nobody on the roster can do it right now. And if you're having struggles against Morehead State because you go 3 of 16 for 3, what's going to happen in the Big Ten? Like, this is concerning on so many levels, to not be able to get up for this game at all, to play terrible in the first half, to get yourself so far behind the 8 ball that you have to make a furious comeback just to win this one. What's going to happen in 3 weeks? Because is this team going to change dramatically in the next 3 weeks? I mean, I see no evidence that this is going to get demonstrably better. And the fact that they cannot shoot is going to bury them when they play good teams. And I don't see any move anywhere in the program to get better at this, whether it's running plays for a guy like Mgbako, who has shown he can hit some threes. He was 0-5 tonight, but a couple of those were good shots. Or running, working with Gabe Gups to improve it. He can't shoot threes right now. He's not even, he's so down on his 3-point shot. He's not even looking to shoot most of the time. Nothing with Galloway getting it demonstrably better as the season goes on. Like, what are we doing to improve that? And every time Mike Woodson is asked about it, he has the same answer. He's like, well, we shoot plenty of threes. We just don't make them. Well, why aren't you making them, Mike? Like, is it something you're not practicing? Is it something you're not doing? Or is it the players you are picking maybe? Is it, what is it? Because if you can't shoot these days in basketball, you're going to lose. And that's what's going to happen to Indiana when they play better teams. They can't play like this ever.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a win, and Indiana did the absolute bare minimum. But it doesn't feel like a show where celebrating the victory really does a whole lot, because this, Coach, to the point that you made very succinctly, what I saw for the vast majority of the game was a team that just didn't really show a whole lot of pride with the jersey on and playing in that arena. Now, once their backs were firmly against the wall, they came back and did what they needed to do. And I will mention here, as we just look at, numbers a little early, because Ryan, you said the free throw line didn't help them. What's amazing is it did. It's the reason they won the game. Even shooting 57%, Indiana makes 16 free throws because the foul disparity was 26-12 on your home court, and you still only win by 1 point. And that, Coach, the frustrating thing for me about this game was how predictable it was. I mean, I texted you about it earlier in the day that I had a bad feeling about this game, because this has not been a team that has, there have been some examples of them doing okay after a big emotional game, but there have also been others where they really haven't. And just seeing the way that we've played against, these types of teams earlier this season, and man, that is really concerning. When you enter a game like this and you really just don't know where the leadership is going to come from, where the production is going to come from, and you're sitting there watching your team get punked at home, and it's disappointing. And it is a little bit surprising, but it's not a shock, because we've seen these types of performances before. And, a lot of what we do in the non-conference, especially in these games, is what is going to translate. What does this mean for future games? And as we've been saying, even as early as Florida Gulf Coast and Army and some of those bad performances, yes, we got the win. Yes, winning matters at the end of the day, but boy, doesn't suggest many good things for the future. And I don't think we really saw anything tonight outside of that desperate, surge to get the win at the end that you're looking at and saying, boy, that's going to translate against a halfway decent Big Ten team.
If the crowd had been even an ounce flatter than it was during that run, they don't make it all the way back. That crowd lifted them late. I mean, it's fair to say, whoever, I thought the crowd was garbage in the first half, but the team was garbage, so they deserved what they got from them. I thought the crowd really lifted them that last 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes or so.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's just this is who this team is. I think we have to admit that. You've had a good performance against Michigan for the most part, a good performance. Although the film, when I watched the Kansas game, there were a lot of bad decisions in that Kansas game. The ball just went in at key moments to keep us in the ball game in the first half, and defense got some transition. But I really felt worse after rewatching the game against Kansas. And then Maryland, we had 30 minutes and then fell flat for the last 12 minutes and kind of limped to that 11 or 12 point. This is who this team is right now, whether that's roster construction, scheme, how they practice, or whatever. Until we see differently, Thursday night's going to be a very close game. We are that kind of team right now. We're winning those games, which is nice, but how long does it take for a team to gel? It's almost to the point now where it's got to happen here real quick. You go on the road to Nebraska in a couple weeks, which has won a couple games here, won at Kansas State and beat Michigan State, and then you come home to Ohio State, who just beat UCLA. So you got a couple Big Ten teams right away that you've got to get ready for. And Indiana played the way they have been coached to play, which is a bunch of one-on-one isolation ball, and it did not work until the last 20 minutes. And part of that was because the foul trouble from someone else, and then all of a sudden the shots went in. But this is how they play. Throw the ball in, take 9 dribbles, and then shoot the basketball. That's how we are designed to play. And I've tried to figure out, I got to start evaluating on that scheme, not what I wish I would see. We are going to get a bunch of isolation basketball with this program. And on nights like Kansas where the ball's going in and you got a mismatch or here, it's going to look good. On other nights, it could look absolutely, I think, dog crap. And it was tonight. So, I'm just disappointed overall. I don't know where to place the blame. Obviously, it goes to everyone for tonight. But Penn State beat this team by 23. Purdue beat this team by 30. Alabama beat this team by 26 or 27. So I know you can't do all the comparison and different times of the season and scheduling, legitimate issues. But I don't know what to tell you other than it's just not good right now.
No, we avoided disaster, but it feels like disaster is still creeping right around the corner, is the problem. Andy, I think the big thing when you look at tonight, if you enter this game and you say, okay, Malik and Khalil are going to have between them 6 field goals and make 4 free throws, I'd be like, okay, we might be in some trouble. Because obviously then that means that you've either got to get points from your backcourt or from your bench, which hasn't been reliable. And again, fortunately, Anthony Walker, stepped up big. And so actually, before we talk about the bigs, we can't get out of segment 1 without talking about Anthony Walker because he was huge. In the first half, when Indiana fell down early, he came in with the bench, scored, I think, 8 points, in one segment between TV timeouts, really lifted the team, and then there toward the end, it was just, he was the one guy the whole time that I thought was bringing energy and kind of making winning plays. He was, hustling. He was getting rebounds. There was a play late where Mackenzie and Mgbako, got it in the corner, drove. He missed the shot, and Anthony Walker was right there to get the rebound he missed, but then he put it back after that. And, seeing that kind of production off the bench, again, from a senior who you need to step up in a moment like that, that is the big positive to come out of this game. Is, from the very beginning of the season when he looked out of control and there were a couple games where it's just like, Anthony, stop dribbling, stop doing this.
He still is.
Well,
he still is out of control. That spin dribble is going to get eaten up in the Big Ten.
Against good.
He got bailed out tonight by fouls, and he takes a 3 that he really probably shouldn't, and he hits it. Now, he was fantastic. I don't want to take anything away from the young man. But our whole program is one-on-one, go over 3 guys and flip it up.
I agree,
that's how we are coached.
Well, okay, but he's doing what the offense is giving him.
And it went in, so he had a good game.
Well, yeah. I mean, but look, 18 points, 9 rebounds, that is something. I know we're all disappointed. I know we're all frustrated. But he has been better, and he's been a more consistent contributor off the bench. So anyway, Andy, let me just get that positive out there, and then we'll go back to – This is not a show that has much of an appetite for positives.
Well, I think the one thing that stands out from him, Renew never really got into a rhythm with some of the foul trouble and the way they were double teaming him, but he is a guy who can put the ball on the floor a little bit, and he was aggressive. I thought there were times that Ware was not aggressive at all, really allowed himself to be pushed out and disrupted by any level of physicality that they had. And IU made a concerted effort to get him the ball at the beginning of the second half. But, I thought he really struggled with some of that, just wasn't super aggressive, and a lot of guys weren't. And I think that's what Walker stood out with, was just in terms of aggressiveness. And I think he had made some strides defensively. He made a couple good, got switched on to guys a couple times, is playing better in that regard. There was still at least one specific breakdown in communication I can recall where he ended up giving up an open three. But I think, he's settling into the system a little bit. But the biggest thing that he brought was energy to a team that was pretty lifeless, energy and aggressiveness, and kind of that notion that I might think that I'm better than these guys, but I'm actually going to go show that I'm better than these guys. And I think a lot of the other IU players just decided, well, we'll just turn it on whenever we need to and go figure it out. And it becomes hard the longer it goes to be able to flip that switch with them. And I think overall, you started some of that in the front court. I go back to what I said. I thought they were really able to bother Ware physically, which doesn't make a ton of sense. But there's a play. He like falls away from the basket doing a scoop shot in the post. It's like you are 4 to 5 inches taller than anybody they have to guard you, infinitely more talented, just very much like finesse around the basket from him instead of, and I know he had a couple, loses the one ball going up right by the basket, missed a dunk, some of those things, but I thought he really struggled. And then Malik just couldn't keep himself on the court. Again, only took 4 shots. Thought the double team at times disrupted him where they really, I don't know if you guys heard Bruce Weber talk, 78 times about them blitzing the post. He was like a wind-up doll that just said the same things over and over and over again the whole game. But I do think Renew's getting a little predictable in terms of where he's going with the ball out of the post. And so there was a pass, skip pass to the corner that got picked off because I think at certain times, like he's getting used to dealing with the double teams. Now he's becoming predictable in how he's dealing with that. And Big Ten teams may not need to double team them in the way that Morehead State did, but Morehead State basically had 4 or 5 guys in or around the lane at virtually all times, just daring IU to take shots and actually make them. And a lot of times IU just continues to try to force the ball inside or dribble through all these people, as coach said, in an effort to get the ball down there. And I think that kind of pack the lane type of stuff is absolutely what you'll see from Big Ten teams because there's no reason at this point to really respect this team's outside shooting ability and everything they want to do runs through the post. So you're just going to see teams do a similar thing that what Morehead State did and packing it in with better athletes to do it.
Yeah. Look, without Anthony Walker, Indiana's not in that game.
Absolutely.
I agree. He's out of control at times and all that, but he came in when everything was slow and nobody was doing anything and everybody was flat-footed, and he attacked and he realized, hey, guys, that's Morehead State. We're better than them. And just went for it and started attacking.
Yeah, he was aggressive and confident on a team where there was none of that.
And I will say,
9 rebounds. In 23 minutes.
He at least drove against one defender.
He went north-south.
Right, and he did a spin. Yeah, he did a spin dribble against one defender, unlike most other players, driving between 3 and getting the ball stolen behind their back for a layup at the end of the half.
And we
kicked the dang ball.
We've talked about this with Indiana. They struggle to go north-south. They don't go – wow. Somebody said, Ryan, you're going to lose your ranting title to coach. I'm like, I'm letting the man cook tonight. He's on fire. Just go. No, but we've talked about this, coach, that Indiana really struggles to go north-south. They go side to side, side to side, side to side. Nobody goes north-south and attacks. He came in and did that. And, and honestly, he didn't play a whole lot against Kansas. He had all his reserves of energy stored up and he used them. And the fact that he only played 23 minutes is probably, it's not enough when the other guys weren't playing well. He should have played more. And, I don't know. It's just that guy saved Indiana tonight. And then Trey Galloway making some plays late. And that's it. That's all Indiana had to hang its hat on tonight.
You're making a good point, unlike in our text messages, which we're going to talk about later in the game. But the good point right there was Walker hits a three, and I agree he was an energy guy. And I'm just fired up. I'm going to pick on everyone tonight because that's just the way it is. When you play this bad, the film room is going to be ugly. I don't care if you scored 18 points. I'm going to pick on you as a head coach. But you're right. They took him out. I couldn't believe Walker came out. And the reason is because Renew and Walker just are interchangeable. And then somehow, thankfully, when Ware came out late, he left Walker in. But I was shocked. Walker hits that big three, and I think he got taken out because they wanted Renew back in the game. That automatic subbing thing drives me a little bit nuts too. That's spot on.
Okay, let's take a little breather here. I do want to just let everybody know we got a new podcast coming on the Back Home Network. So if you've been around the IU message boards, you've probably seen IU in Philly. You've probably seen C. Bob Moats. Well, you know Coach Bob Moats. He's been on this show several times. Giving those two guys a podcast. If you've read their messages, if you've had the pleasure of interacting with them on Discords, they produce some of the most thoughtful commentary, not just about Indiana basketball, but about college basketball in general. What does it take to build successful rosters? Mike has like spreadsheets that go back decades that chart all of this stuff, and they're distilling all that information in their podcast. So it's called X's and Joe's. It's about decoding what wins in college basketball. If you go look for it right now, you'll find it. We've got a trailer up. The first episode is probably coming out tomorrow or maybe later this week. But get in there. You can subscribe right now so that when that first episode comes out, it will hit your podcast feeds. Really excited about this podcast. I mean, these two guys, if you are a college basketball nerd, this is a podcast for you because it is in-depth commentary on what it takes to build a winner based on empirical evidence, and they're just fun to listen to. So anyway, go. X's and Joe's is the name of the podcast, so search for that. You'll find it, and I'll throw a link up on Twitter as well. Okay, coming up as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's close shave tonight against Morehead State, we'll point out tonight's meaningful moments you might have missed, and then we'll go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hey guys, it's Gene Steratore, CBS officiating analyst and retired Big Ten basketball official. You know I have never listened to the Assembly Call, and to be honest, I don't intend to. But if you listen, make sure you ignore anything Ryan says about officiating. He's really good from the seat of his pants, but I wouldn't trust him on the court with a whistle around his neck. Time has proven him wrong on virtually everything. Take care. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Gene. Always appreciate it. You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Jared Morris here with Ryan Phillips, Andy Bottoms, and a fired-up Coach Tonsoni, who just realized that not only was his own personal volume up, but his microphone volume was all the way up. So if he was maxing out your speakers there as you were listening, we apologize for that. But I think we toned the microphone.
I'm having a horrible night.
Yeah.
I got to get with it too.
We toned the microphone down. I don't know if we toned Coach down. We'll have to see. But anyway, top of segment 2, you know what that means.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
Yes, this segment brought to you by our friends at Hoosier Ticket Project, where they help individuals and families experience IU athletic events in person for the first time through the generosity of alumni and fans. To learn more about how you can donate money or extra tickets to help create meaningful moments for other IU fans, visit HoosierTicketProject.org. That's HoosierTicketProject.org. You know, Ryan, you texted early in the game, and this was one of the few text messages that you got right this evening. We're
going to talk later, boys. It's going to be fun. You guys stick around after the show for this one.
Are you sure? Like, we're giving you time. It's a bad take. Don't you? You have time to
I got
not
it.
say it. Okay. All right. Anyway, but you said Mgbako looks primed for a big night or something like that.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. You know, I think tonight, Mackenzie Mgbako, I mean, he had his struggles like everybody else. But I thought, you know, he really did some things that were good. And I thought it was more a game where he shot poorly instead of played poorly. You know, like he goes 0 for 5 from 3. There were a lot of really good looks there. If he makes 2 or 3 of those, and he's the one guy on this team when he shoots it, you think it's going in. I mean, I think his shots are going in. You know, he hits a couple of those shots. He's at 19, 20 points and 7 rebounds. And we're talking about, you know, how big of a game. Now, obviously the shot has to actually go in. So, you know, ifs and buts and all that stuff. but I continue to be encouraged by what we're seeing from him. This is the 6th straight game he's been in double figures. And there was one play that really stood out. It's 53-42. Trey Galloway misses a three-pointer. Mgbako goes and battles for a rebound, and he scores. It was a really big play. It cut it to 9. It was just great awareness and hustle because it was a really, tough rebound from Mgbako. Then he goes down on the other end, picks up 2 quick fouls, and on the next possession bricks a 3, and then just stands there instead of going for the rebound. And there was a fight for the rebound. All he had to do was take one step, but he wasn't pouting, but he bricked that shot really bad, and his feet were just like in cement for a couple seconds instead of responding. And that, to me, Coach, is just a freshman, right? You're going to get some of those really good plays, and then you're going to get some of those plays where mentally he just kind of loses it for a little bit. And look, you have a performance like this, you go down the list of who's to blame, your freshmen are at the bottom of the list for who's to blame. This is on coaches, it's on upperclassmen, and so while Mackenzie still has a lot of room to grow, I think what we've seen from him over the last few games is really encouraging. And I'll tell you another moment that stood out, Coach, and I don't know if you caught this or not. It was 64-51. He took a 3 early in the shot clock, and you could tell the coaches got really mad. They must have, wanted the ball to go inside. Coach Ya, slams his hand down on the chair, and they're frustrated about it, which, I don't know, you're a really good three-point shooter. He takes a decent look. Maybe just let that go a little bit, but whatever, who knows what was going on. But what I really liked is there was a dead ball down at the other end, and, Coach Woodson called him over, and Mgbako sprinted to him. We've seen some other times, guys kind of lollygag over, whatever. He sprinted over to him, got whatever Coach Woodson wanted, and then went on and made the play. And it was a small thing, but just seeing that, enthusiasm to be coached, which I don't think we saw as much from him early. I just think there's a lot of little things and big things from him that are trending in the right direction. And for a program that is having some ups and downs and some struggles, if you can just get him, get the three-point shooting a little bit better, which I still think is coming, he's making the kind of progress he needs to make. I just think he needs some other guys around him, especially upperclassmen, or at least sophomores who've been around a little bit longer, to be a little bit better. But those moments stood out to me. It was not a perfect performance from him, but I thought we continued to see the growth that we've been hoping for from Mackenzie.
No, I was pretty impressed with Mgbako tonight. I know that's going to shock everyone with how I'm feeling. I think that rebound speaks volumes to where Mgbako is, because he came from the top of the key and he didn't just run up someone's back. He ran around them and he fought for that. And I thought there were some other times he got 7 rebounds, 1 assist, no turnovers, and they're running some double pins on the baseline. They ran a lot of chin action tonight. I don't know what they were trying to do with it. I'd have to go back and watch where they set a back screen for the opposite guard after a ball reversal. So they're starting to going from not running anything from Mgbako to running like 4% of what they need to run for Mgbako. So that's an improvement, that they're at least like running 4 times a game trying to get him a shot. And he missed both those shots when he came off the double pin, but he is playing a lot harder. He's in better stances, and his pursuit of the rebound tells you if he's locked in or not. He still struggles defensively, as you would expect freshmen. But Mgbako was not the one that I would be all over tonight. Walker and Mgbako, I think, were the two that really, I thought, came to play tonight.
Yep.
Yeah, I think with him, I mean, I was surprised when I would check the box score periodically or they would flash the shooting numbers up. But, I didn't think he took a couple bad shots. There was one in the first half that he forced kind of from the post where I think he was trying to draw a foul. There was another, he waited a little bit too long in the post and got blocked, but it wasn't a bad shot. And I think the 3 that you mentioned, Jared, was probably another force, if you will. But the other shots he took were good shots that you think are going in. He's rimmed out a bunch of them. You just feel like it's coming. But I didn't think he let the fact that shots weren't going to the basket impact him. He, was aggressive driving it, was aggressive on rebounds, ended up with 3 offensive rebounds, and might have got another one off of a free throw miss, I want to say. But so I think you're starting to see good signs from him. He's continuing to get a little bit better defensively as you go. So I think those small moments are big things for him as he tries to, to get there. And, I don't think if you give him 5 of the quality looks that he got from 3-point range tonight, I don't think there's too many games where he doesn't make a single one of them. But he apparently is afflicted with whatever the rest of the team is from a shooting perspective. So maybe he
in
will.
the water in the basketball facility. Seriously.
I mean, maybe when a guy has a decent look, don't slam your hand on the chair if he misses it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Again,
look, I think
maybe they wanted to run something specific, and that's
fair.
fine. Like, we don't know. But those kind of things, that's the kind of stuff that suggests to me we don't understand the value of shooting, and, maybe the coaches are in the guys' heads because of stuff like that.
I mean,
Well,
it has to be.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I tell you, the play that Cups got fouled on going to the basket. I was shocked that he didn't continue to one more past that to Mgbako, who was wide open for a three. I think Mgbako was also moderately incredulous about the situation, but he ran and dapped up Cups after he made that shot. But it was like, I mean, giving up what feels like a high percentage shot to drive into the lane and flip the ball over your head. I mean, it was great that he got fouled. It was a good play that it goes in, but
we don't win without
man,
that
that's symptomatic. But that's symptomatic of like this team's approach offensively. And I know that he kind of pass faked and thought he had the angle to drive and whatever else, but it's like, as that ball swinging around the horn, I'm looking at him standing there on the wing like, this is a wide open shot. If this goes in, what a momentum swing for that, and like didn't even get the chance to take the shot. But I think I don't mean that as a knock on Cups. I think at some point,
mentality thing.
At some point, it is a mentality of what is drilled into these guys and what they're doing and how they think they can, when they get behind, what their approach is to come back in games. And
yeah, looking at Mgbako's shooting stats, 3 of 14 and 0 of 5 from 3. Again, I don't think he took many bad shots. I can think of maybe 3 that I wish he had, that he probably wishes he had back. But what else did you have going on? It's not like Ware was dominating
what was the opportunity
post.
cost on Mgbako's
and you're like giving up a post look for Ware, who was flat all game. And I don't blame him. He just played 37 minutes against one of the best post players in the country the other night. Like he, given his lack of experience, maybe it's a bit of a letdown game for him. I mean, I don't think that's, while he had a good stretch at the beginning of the second half, I'm just saying,
need load
man,
management.
No, I'm just saying it's true though. Okay, Jared, I'm going to say one thing. When was the last time Indiana came out and played well after a big Assembly Hall game? When was the last time that happened?
No. There's no debate about this. I agree. The program doesn't handle that well. That doesn't mean that the schedule's the problem. It's the maturity of the program.
We'll talk about the schedule
problem.
part later, but I'm saying that coming off of that game, Ware had a bit of a letdown.
It was
tonight.
entirely predictable that would happen, but it shouldn't be.
Of course it shouldn't. IU also shouldn't be scraping by to get in the tournament every year. Like IU should be competing for Big Ten championships. IU should be getting the Sweet 16 every other year. Call me when that's the case, and we can talk about what the program should be.
When we stop making excuses for a guy being tired, we played too many minutes 3 days ago, so we can't expect anything.
This is the equivalent of the dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Schedule for the program that you want, not the program you have.
Like, it's not shocking that Ware didn't have a great game tonight after guarding Hunter Dickinson for 37 minutes the other night.
But it should be, is my problem. He should be held to a little higher standard than this.
You're right, it should be, but he's essentially a freshman and a half. Like, I don't expect him to have the maturity to come out and be like, I've got to lock in and do that. Like, it's just not realistic. Like, you can. I agree. NBA scouts are going to look at that and be like, he should have dominated this team. Completely agree. But I also live in a reality where he's 20 years old, and it's probably not going to happen. He's not Trace Jackson Davis in his senior year. Like, it's just, that's not the case.
I don't know why you guys are all upset. It was, we won the game tonight. Why? I just don't get why you guys are so upset.
Anyway, my point is, I thought Mgbako stepped up and played well. Yeah. I did.
Anyway, my point is Mgbako played well.
Yeah.
But he did. And Andy, I want to go back to something Andy said, because I think it's just spot on. The bad shots he took were driving and trying to do too much in the lane over 2 people, or spinning and then getting double teamed and then the shot blocked. Our awareness of the one more passing or the kick out, I am really big on that. I probably should do a coach's corner. When we kick it out, we are more likely to hit a 3 and get that ball swinging, but those are once or twice a ball game. The bad shots in the lane, we've been bailed out by fouls. If they just would wall up and let us go crazy and take contested twos, it could get Well, it was a little ugly today. The ball didn't go in. Cups' shot was not good. He gets an and one. Walker's spin move twice got fouled. He was not going to make either one of those if they don't foul, and that's a rebound going the other way. And Mgbako did too, so it is symptomatic. You're not going to put that on the kids. The kids are being taught to be aggressive, to get to the rim. They're running stuff for the post at the rim. Then when they bring the post to the high post and back cut people, they want to get the guards at the rim. We have a team right now of players maybe that can only score at the rim. There, or a floater. There's not a real elbow pull-up game, and there is a step-in three, but we don't shoot them because I don't think we emphasize them or really work on them maybe in game speed actions or something. But it's symptomatic. The bad shots we do take. Walker was great tonight. I thought Mgbako was pretty good tonight, but they're bad shots tonight. People are open. People are open on the threes, and we'll get more threes, and we'll make more threes if all we did is share the ball after drawing double teams in the post, or we draw two on drives and kick the ball out. Indiana would be much more efficient offensively. That's the frustration from my vantage point, is even with this scheme, they can play better within the scheme that Coach Woodson's running, and we haven't seen it, and it's game 11. That's the frustration.
Yeah, one other quick thing on Mgbako. You referenced those two fouls. Like he just, to me, in that moment was overly aggressive, but overly aggressive in trying to find ways to get something going for the team. And I thought he was trying too hard in a lot of cases, but at least he was trying. And that's it's kind of a terrible thing to say, but I mean, he really seemed to take it on himself to try to make shots and do things that would get the team a spark. And he missed more of those shots than he made as he did those things, but really thought he was doing things out of somebody has to do something about what's happening here, and maybe overstepped it a little bit and was way too aggressive on defense and got those fouls, but it was not out of poor positioning or lack of effort or lack of attention and some of the things that he was, getting beat on earlier in the year, where he's just like getting right up on somebody and that. So anyway, all right, moving on.
Do you have any other moments, Andy? Any other meaningful moments that jump out?
I mean,
Coach pre-show was a meaningful moment you definitely missed.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I wasn't rolling with the recorder. So.
I was jumping up and down with joy after that buzzer went off.
Yeah, such a happy guy.
No, look, the other moment that stood out, and, Bruce Weber made mention of this, when it was 28-21, and, Indiana ran that really nice set and got where the alley-oop, and he just missed it, and it was like, and there was just nothing. Like, there was no energy at all. Like, even his jump looked flat. The finish looked flat. Everything about it, it was just so emblematic of the way they played that first half. And again, we're not being unreasonable. Like, I get when you have a big emotional game, it is human nature to not be at as quite a fever pitch the next game. And so you allow for a little bit of flat play. But man, at some point you got to get out of that. And there's, you've got to start playing with more energy and more fight and more toughness much sooner than just your back's against the wall with 6-7 minutes to go. And so that was the big problem. And you could probably pick out 100 plays from the first half and the middle part of the second half that showed that. So anyway, Andy, any other moments for you, or you want to talk numbers? Let's talk numbers. Okay. Brought to you by Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding areas and you want your taxes done right, contact our friend and Chat Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey and her team in Bloomington, Bedford, and Martinsville by calling 812-339-3334 or by visiting jacksonhewitt.com. So the two big numbers for me, if you looked at Morehead State coming into this game, okay, think about how bad Indiana is at using the three-point line. Like, our percentage is bad and our usage is bad. That's Morehead State when it comes to turnovers. They commit a ton of them, like 23% coming into the game, and they don't force any of them. So they have one of the biggest turnover gaps in the nation. And it really felt like a game. Hey, you come out, you play some tough defense, you harass these guys, you're going to get some turnovers, maybe get some easy buckets. That, to me, was the path to, okay, maybe we're not quite as sharp as we've been, but we'll get some easy buckets, and that'll get us going. Well, what ended up happening? Indiana didn't commit a lot of turnovers, only 5, 3 from Trey, 2 from
That's
Malik
shocking,
Renew.
by the way. That number is shocking.
Yeah, but we only turned them over 7 times. 7 times, which goes along with the other stat, 3 blocks, 1 steal. We've come on a lot of times, Andy, on this show and lauded the team for, wow, 8 blocks and 9 steals. Like, there's so much energy. And you just didn't see that at all. And for that for that to be what happened against this team is unconscionable. I mean, that just shows how little effort and energy and attention to detail and all that stuff was, because this should have been a game where you get a lot of blocks, a lot of steals, and they had basically none. And to me, those stats tell the story of this game. You know, and Indiana was able to escape, but did not play well in almost any facet.
No. I think that shows up in the other area that shows up is offensive rebounding. They gave up 7 in the first half, just 2 in the second half. And kind of a lot of the same things that we've seen so many times this year of guys just not really bothering to put a body on somebody, just going up and thinking athletically they're going to get the rebound. There were some long rebounds there, but you're not really making contact with anybody to try to do that. And they're a little bit lucky they didn't give up more second chance points than what they actually did. But I thought the block and steal numbers, as you said, was pretty reflective of the overall defensive effort in the first half in particular. And IU came out a bit in the second half and definitely was more intense on the defensive end. But even then weren't overly disruptive in terms of what they did. And I think what that allowed, the other thing that led to, and maybe this is probably a chicken and egg argument at some point, we talk about this team needing to get out in transition and get some easy baskets. Not generating steals doesn't allow them to do that. And IU ends the game with 2 fast break points. I mean, this team is just not good enough offensively to be able to play in the half court. I mean, tonight's perfect evidence of that, right? Hardly turned the ball over, and it was a slog offensively. Now, the second half, IU, I had them at 1.38 points per possession. So they performed well there in half court offense, but this team has to find ways to get out and run a little bit in transition. And I thought Morehead State, for the majority of the game, really controlled the tempo, didn't take quick shots. And when they did, more often than not, that was, gave IU a chance to at least attempt to push the ball up the floor. But yeah, I think all that stuff kind of works in concert with one another to really, slow the game down in a way that didn't allow IU to get anything easy in transition or get the crowd going or any of those kinds of things. And, good game plan on their part, but it also speaks to, IU's inability to be focused defensively in a way that allowed them to take advantage of one of the weaknesses of the other team.
Coach, a couple other numbers that stand out to me, when it comes to rebounds, I thought Gabe Cupps had several really tough defensive rebounds where he just went and attacked the ball. And contrast that with Trey Galloway, who had no rebounds. And look, I mentioned Trey Galloway in the banner moment because, at the end of the day, hitting 2 big shots like that matters. And it's, without those 2 shots, Indiana doesn't win the game. And I think that is a sign of growth for Trey in terms of the offensive production that he has to provide in terms of scoring. But outside of the 14 points that he gave Indiana, he had no rebounds, 1 assist, 3 turnovers, no blocks, and no steals. And, it seemed like he was in a tough matchup defensively, but it also just didn't seem like he was quite as locked in as you often see him, and Trey has been a guy who's been really up and down throughout his career. And so, again, I give him credit for scoring points at the end when Indiana absolutely had to have it. But as a senior, you're the one who's in a lot of ways responsible for the way that your team plays. And I didn't think he set the right tone, in the first half. I thought he did in the second half. I thought he came out and played really hard defensively early when Indiana kind of got going. But this is one where Indiana needed a little bit more from him overall, outside of just the scoring to maybe make it not such a close game down the stretch. And that difference just between those 2 guys and rebounding, I think, was indicative of that.
Yeah, and I'll still rest with I think he's trying to do several people's jobs and trying to win, have 8-point possessions at one time. And that's what happened there at the end with the behind the back. But he did the same thing late in the game at Kansas and missed a wide open Mgbako for a 3. I think it was 69-66, and then he went off a middle ball screen, and we ended up not scoring on that late in the Kansas game. But I think Trey, being a coach's kid and being from Indiana, he really wants to make this work. But I think he's just doing too much. At Kansas, it worked, and he was scoring, and things were really going well. But he had 5 turnovers there. So there were pieces of that game where he was even trying too hard, not making an excuse at all. And then tonight, he just wasn't getting it going for a while, and that's why those numbers are such. But he needs to do what he can do, which is guard rebounding is a real issue with this team, especially when you're going to hunt block shots. Galen was talking about. I watched the first half of Galen's live show. That was great. If he does that again, I suggest people tune in. He had some really good comments, and there was talk about why is rebounding such a struggle. Well, Indiana in the last 3 years has hunted block shots, which is an appropriate way to play defense when you have a shot blocker. But you need your guards to come down and crack down and block out and then go get the ball. And for some reason, this group doesn't. You mentioned Cups getting 2. He did that at key moments. Cups seems to do that a little bit from his point guard spot. But when X was in,
Cups and 5.
Yeah,
He had a couple of huge rebounds too.
Yeah, that's really a good thing for us to do, because we still want Ware to be that rim protector. On the other hand, rebounding, I will add to that, Jared, the numbers that, again, a positive here would be offensive rebound and second chance points for Indiana. That's been something that's been a concern too. We talked about Mgbako's great effort, offensive rebound. I thought Renew had a tough game today. He wasn't very good, but he had a couple key rebounds. One, that last 3 where he got fouled. And I thought Indiana had more of an effort going to the offensive rebounds, which they're going to need going forward. So, again, there are pieces of tonight that you can say, okay, Indiana played better, or those things are going to help Indiana perform well down the stretch. But they're just not enough tonight. But I thought offensive rebounding and then Gabe Cups rebounding were some numbers that were very, very important.
Yeah, and Ryan, the rebounding got better as the game went on. I think Morehead
Much
State
better.
had 6 or 7 of those offensive rebounds in
Right.
the first, like, 5 or 6 minutes of the game. I mean, they were just getting all
They
of
only
them.
had
And
9.
so Indiana did
or they only
shore
had,
that up, which was a huge part of the reason why they won.
Yeah, they only had
Yeah.
2 in the second half.
And by the way, I will say on Trey, he did spend a lot of time chasing his man too, and sometimes that leaves you a little bit out of position for rebounding. So I don't want to totally
especially in the
dog on
first
it.
half, he just everybody came out slow. And he was getting beat off the dribble early too. And when you're chasing like that, it's hard to recover then block out. It really, because you already stepped behind your guy. Then you got to not only catch up to him, but then turn and locate the rebound. And so when you're a step slow, it plays out everywhere. But the Morehead State only had 2 second chance points in the second half.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, in the first half they had 6, I think it was. But they also extended. All those offensive rebounds extend plays and tire you out because you're continuing to have to play defense for longer stretches. And Bruce Weber pointed that out. And it was one of the few astute things I heard him say, but it was, it's also demoralizing. When you do get a stop and then you lose the rebound, got to go and maybe force them into a bad shot, don't get it and have to do that. So I thought that the rebounding did clamp down in the second half a lot better. I'm just going to reiterate my numbers, just the shooting again, 18.8% from 3, 57.1% from the free throw line. If you're average at those 2 things, you win this game pretty easily.
And I thought you were going to go here from the 3-point line. Morehead State didn't shoot it great, 29.4%, but they did hit 10 of them.
Yep.
And so that was clearly their strategy, and that's what they've done all season long. They're
Yes.
a high volume 3-point shooting team.
Not
they
a
got
good
30
3-point
points from the 3-point line, and Indiana only got 9. Now we took half the amount of shots, but even just in there, they still had the advantage from an efficiency perspective and from a quantity perspective.
Yeah.
And that's just this program. We are now 2.5 years in. Valuing the 3-point line is not a fundamental core tenet of this program. It is that's nice. If you get it, that's nice.
It's a nice bonus.
But it's not a fundamental tenet. And that flies in the face of what we have learned about basketball the last 10 years. And so we just enter every game behind, knowing that we're going to lose the 3-point line from anywhere between 9 to 15 points. And you got to make that up somewhere. You can make it up on free throws, on fast break points. And it's always a high wire act. And we've continued to do it against these teams ranked in the 150s to the 200s. But then when you can play teams that can do more than just jack up threes and get hot, you get blasted. That's why we've been talking about this so much, and that's why it's so frustrating, because it's just very predictable.
And really,
you can outrun
Jared,
it for a game or 2 here or there, but
you
it's
can
not
dodge
a
it.
sustainable long-term strategy.
You
On the
can
bright
dodge
side-
it. Yeah.
On the bright side, Paul Biancardi's ESPN article this week, his senior high school basketball player superlatives. You know who he named as the best shooter? Liam McNeely. So we'll get Liam McNeely in. He can take his 2 or 3 threes a game and then just dribble into the lane into traffic.
If Liam McNeely isn't taking 6 threes a game, this program is broken. But no, and to reiterate, Jared, you said it's 2.5 years in. It's actually 6.5 years in of not valuing the 3, because the previous regime didn't do it either. And so it's become a program fixture to not value 3-point shooting. It really
and that's
has.
why Gabe Cups passes up Mackenzie and Mgbako wide open in the corner. The things are related. They're related.
Absolutely, 100%. And it's what you preach. It's philosophy, and a wide open 3 is better than a contested 2. It is, and that is not the way our team plays. That's not the way Indiana plays.
I really hate to do this, but Coach Calipari was quoted this week of saying, the game is going to this. You better have a bunch of shooters. After the Kentucky people were all over their head coach, who's won national championships and gotten the Final Fours for playing 2 bigs and running a high-low offense. He did do the dribble drive for a while. But
the amount of
Calipari said
sarcasm
that
in the replies on that quote on Twitter were so funny from the Kentucky
right?
fans.
But I saw something. There's a really good article about how Marquette plays too, and the way they play beautiful basketball. Which as you watch a lot of different where we're coming from is Woodson's not going anywhere, and we're not asking for Woodson to go anywhere. We're asking for Woodson to be better. We're asking for the players to be better because this is just frustrating to watch. And part of that is a lot of us watch a lot of basketball and we see different styles that are working, and that's where we're coming from. Tonight was a tough watch, in every stat category.
And I think the thing about hitting threes is you can make up for a lot of deficiencies on your roster if you can make 3-pointers. Whereas you can make up a lot of points quickly if you're behind. If you run everything through the post, you are, as Jared said, running a high wire act to win games. Because if you face somebody who can shoot, you're trading 2 for 3 a lot. And that math does not work out to win games a lot. And so, but I do think that, if you struggle on defense a little bit, or you have a game where you're not playing well defensively, you can cover for that by hitting shots. And maybe your defense starts to improve as the game goes along. If you're playing terrible defense and you're scoring and you're not super efficient from 2, so you're just not playing well on either end, really, you're going to get buried before you can come back, before you can establish yourself. Then once you establish yourself, you're already down double digits and you can't shoot on top of that to shoot your way back into the game. So I think that it's just shooting covers for a lot of deficiencies. And if you're a good team already and you don't have a ton of deficiencies, shooting makes you even better. And so there's no downside to it, which is why if you invest in it heavily, you're never going to be disappointed.
I love how it was necessary for us to just spend 3 minutes discussing the value of shooting.
Why shooting is important? Yeah, I know. Well, I have so many people that say to me, like, what do you guys even mean by modern basketball? I mean, taking advantage of the analytical side of things, which says 3 is more than 2. And I love that is like a controversial thing, that if you can hit 3s, it improves everything. And then just the tactical aspect, it spreads the floor and opens up that post stuff inside, because they can't pack, as Morehead State did for part of the first half, put 4 guys in the painted area while you're trying to get Ware going, because they know nobody from Indiana is going to shoot a 3 successfully. And it just, if you can shoot, it opens that up. Ware's working one-on-one. They can't double him if guys can shoot. And so that's why we harp on shooting so much. It changes the game when you can actually do it.
And the last thing I'll note on this, because there are going to be some people who say, well, we won by 1 and Morehead State took 34 threes and only made 10 of them. So how'd that math work out for you tonight, boys? Look, we are not worried about what do we need to do to beat Morehead State? What do we need to do to beat Florida Gulf Coast?
Agreed.
We want to beat Auburn. We want to beat UConn. We want to beat Kansas.
And
this is the missing element in doing that. That's why. Okay. Anyway, let's break.
Y'all are on edge tonight. I don't get it.
Coach is the calm one. Yeah.
He's the calm one. All right, coming up on Assembly Call, let's hand out our Game Balls and Hoosier Hustle Award, discuss a lingering question or two, and look ahead to what's next. Quick turnaround coming up Thursday. Stick with us here on the Assembly Call.
This is Jordan Halls, and I never miss a shot or an episode of the Assembly Call.
Now, there's someone who understands the value of shooting. You're listening to that's the weird thing, too. Our coaching staff includes Mike Woodson, Calvert Chaney, Jordan Halls, Brian Walsh, all guys who were good three-point shooters.
Those who can't teach? I don't know.
I don't know. You're listening to the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. I'm Jared Morris here with Coach Brian Tonsoni, Andy Bottoms, and Ryan Phillips. It is time now for our game balls, presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. You know, as we enter the colder months and begin to stay indoors a bit more, they want to make sure everyone knows about radon, a colorless, odorless, radioactive gas that is the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers. It enters buildings through cracks and gaps in the foundation and through service pipes of homes. Contact Bloom Environmental today. Mention Assembly Call for a free radon test kit and mitigation estimate. You can learn more at bloomenviro.com. That's bloomenviro.com. Coach, were you trying to say something before I jumped into that ad read?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't.
Well, now you have.
Are you sure you're holding back now? Like,
you're gonna save it for after the show?
No, it's time for game balls.
All right, we'll come back to you. Yes, everyone's favorite segment after a questionable performance is game balls. But there were some worthy performances tonight to go to. Andy, who gets your game ball?
Got to be Anthony Walker. Really provided a spark off the bench, led the team in scoring, tied for the lead in rebounding, almost tied for the lead in assists with 2. Which tells you a little bit about what was going on offensively, but just really thought he was a great spark. Actually made 2 of 2 free throws down the stretch. Now he did miss some in the first half, so he was not perfect in that stretch, but at least down toward the end of the game was able to make a couple. And just thought he made a lot of great energy plays and was a difference in the game. Woodson called him the MVP after the game, so who am I to disagree, right?
We never questioned Mike Woodson on the show.
Well,
never once. Has that ever happened?
I mean, except for the past 61 minutes. Otherwise,
please, fans, go back and try and find where that's ever happened and point it out to us, because
Coach, who gets your game ball?
Walker.
No explanation needed. Yeah,
I don't think we did.
Yeah,
Walker
by far.
is self-evident.
It's just by far. He was, every player makes bad decisions. I know I harped on him early. I was fired up, but the kid brought a lot of energy and hit some big shots and really changed. Even in the first half when down 11, he made plays tonight. Obviously from my vantage point, I don't care if you win by 30. I'm gonna find some things wrong. And tonight I'm really focusing on that because it needs to be fixed in a hurry. A lot of stuff needs to be fixed more. But Anthony Walker was tremendous in his energy, more than just the total of points that he got. But it was game changing because without that, we're not even in position to make that 20-4 run or whatever it was down the stretch. So congratulations to that young man.
Coach, I agree with you on the energy that he brought. And I think the even more specific point there is he brought energy when nobody else was bringing energy. It wasn't like he came into a situation, just added to it. He jump-started the engine, essentially. And even when nobody else continued to give energy, he continued to push forward. And so I think that he was vitally important, especially in that first half where things were not going well. He was the only thing successful that Indiana was doing. So resounding game ball for him. I don't think it's even close.
I agree. He gets my game ball. I mean, and everything that you just talked about from the energy perspective, that would set him up for a Hoosier Hustle Award, right? Because you bring energy on a night when no one else is bringing it, and what separated it was he produced. He was out there. I mean, on a night when Malik and Khalil get 4 and 8 shots between them, Anthony Walker gets 11. That is not, the kind of ratio that we want most nights, but it worked tonight because he was there and he was tough and he got rebounds and he scored through contact. Made shots. This was a big night for him. And so even if the 3 that he took at 50-39 wasn't a great shot, he's a senior and he stepped up and made it. And at some point, you got to get credit for the makes or misses. So he stepped up and made it, and I give him a lot of credit for that.
Worth noting, he did that all in 23 minutes too. 18 points in 23 minutes and 9 rebounds as well. So he really took advantage of his time on the floor.
Yep. Okay. Hustle Award.
The Hoosier Real Hustle Award.
Hi, this is Anthony Leal, and it's time for the Hoosier Hustle Award. But first, I have some exciting news to share about our friends at Evansville Security Services. They've been acquired. They are now part of the team at Security Pro 24/7, which provides trusted and reliable security for your event or business, from Bloomington, my hometown, to Evansville, where Coach Calvert Chaney grew up, and everything in between. Just like hustle can't be measured by stats, prevention can't be measured either, but it has a huge impact on your bottom line and peace of mind. So let the security pros at Security Pro 24/7 help you prevent a bad outcome today. Visit securitypro247.com to learn more. That's securitypro247.com. And tell them Anthony Leo sent you.
Thank you, Anthony. Hustle Award, Coach. Why don't you lead us off?
Man, this is a tough one because there just was a lack of energy all the way around for most of the team, and so it's hard to pinpoint this one. I think it's going to come down to two players. You can go Cups for his rebound and key rebounds there, and I think Mgbako might not have shot perfectly tonight. You said it really. Sometimes when you don't have stats or numbers, doesn't mean that you played bad. It just means that you shot poorly. I thought he took a couple bad shots, but I thought that rebound means a lot in evaluating Mgbako because that wasn't happening at all earlier in the year. And 7 rebounds, I believe he had. I think that his effort. The only issue with him now is decision-making and technique, maybe on the defensive end. So it's between those two for me. I'm going to go with Mgbako. I'm a big Gabe Cupps fan. I think he's solid. I know there's a lot of people, a good argument going on in the chat about him. Be patient, those of you. I think he's going to be very, very special once he figures out the college game. But I would be okay going either way, but I'm going to throw it to Mgbako to start.
Okay. Andy, who gets your Hustle Award?
Yeah, those are the two that I was considering. I'm going to go with Mgbako as well for a lot of the reasons we touched on. The thing with Cupps, he just seems like he's off balance and floating and drifting on every shot that he's taking. And some of the shots just feel like he's taking them because he feels like he's been in the game so long he has to shoot. I thought both the shots against Kansas were that way, just kind of fading toward the baseline, not totally in the flow of the offense, not a terrible shot, but not really open. I thought the 3 that he took in transition tonight was a good one, where he's getting a kick out, but he's drifting so far toward the baseline when he shoots it, it almost looked like it had no chance to go in. And I think he kicked his legs out oddly on one he took in the second half. Just seems like he's kind of forcing that, but taking shots because he feels like he has to, which I guess you're playing that many minutes. Maybe you got to get a few shots up here and there, but I think he was steady for sure and would have been a worthy choice. But I'm going to go with Mgbako. I thought he made a number of hustle plays on the boards, and yeah, as we talked about before, didn't feel like his mistakes were not ones of a lack of effort, but more of trying to do too much.
Brian?
Yeah, it's Mgbako for me. I think you could give it to Gabe Cupps. Forget the rebounds. I thought his on-ball defense late during that stretch where they shut down Morehead State's offense was really good. I thought his switches were good. I thought he was closing out well. So I really appreciated that. But I think it's Mgbako for everything he showed tonight. And again, I don't mind the 3 for 14 because it's not like there were 11 other shots I would have rather had taken by somebody in that game. I mean, genuinely, that's the case.
Yep. Yeah, Cupps, a game high plus 13 on the game. And, I think his defense was a big part of that, his rebounding. And Andy, to your point, the shot doesn't look confident at all. And he's kind of doing that thing Miller Kopp did his first year at Indiana where he's drifting when he shoots it. And Miller really got rid of that his last year at Indiana. But I'm somewhat encouraged that he was taking them at least, because I think that's the next step for him. He's got to at least have the confidence to take them. Now he's got to start making them at some point. But if he's going to play 32 minutes, he's got to be able to get 3, 4, 5 shots up and at least be a little bit of a threat. And he's a guy who proved he can make them in high school. He's got a nice little mid-range shot that it would be nice if he could start hitting with confidence. So, I'm with you. I didn't feel like any of the shots were going in, but I'm encouraged. He scored 11 points against Auburn or whatever it was. He's starting to look for his offense a little bit more. And, especially if, X is going to be out for much longer. And I think right now the earliest is probably the game on the 29th that he might be back. Otherwise, be until January. But either way, Cupps is going to continue to play big minutes for this team. And he's got to, at some point, be able to give you something offensively. So I was at least encouraged that he started taking the shots. It's not much, but it's something. But Mgbako gets my Hustle Award for all the reasons that you guys have said and that I talked about earlier during meaningful moments. Quick pop quiz. Do you know who currently leads the team in Hustle Awards for the season? 2 players are tied. Can you name them without looking at the run sheet?
Cupps.
Nope.
I think Mgbako and Walker.
Mgbako and Walker. Yep.
I do not have the run sheet up.
Walker could have got one tonight.
Yep. He could.
Walker could have got both. If Jen had her way, she wanted Walker, I think, to have both.
Well,
and that probably would have been correct to some extent. I mean, his hustle was why he got the game ball. Yeah, Ryan's muted. It's a beautiful thing. He's trying to
we made a very
most beautiful comment I've ever heard.
We made a very arbitrary decision in about 30 seconds, like 2 years ago, that they can't get someone can't get both, and that is stuck. We stick to our principles, even though it was poorly thought out.
Yeah, it's just so we didn't talk about the same guy for 2 segments in a row, which we're doing anyway.
True.
So glad we did that.
I really I can't help but second guess Coach for telling Ryan that he was muted, but otherwise,
It's true.
Otherwise,
my bad.
Otherwise,
My
good
bad.
show, Coach. Yeah.
My bad.
All right, so coming up for Indiana is a game against North Alabama on Thursday. Now, my question is, should Indiana even show up for this game, Ryan? Because, you had the tough one against Kansas.
2 days.
Now you've only got 1 day in between. Really, if Indiana comes out and loses by 25, it's fine. That's
not what I said. You're totally misrepresenting what I was saying.
I am.
We'll talk about it after the show because I don't want to take 45 minutes when Andy's only got 10.
I will. Okay, so North Alabama, they are currently 225th in KenPom, yada, yada. None of that matters because it doesn't matter who Indiana plays. These games are just tight. So we can sit here and hope that Indiana will come out and get a big win that can help the net ratings. I saw lots of people earlier today, we need to win this one by 20 to 25 and help our net. I'm thinking to myself, we just need to
Guess
win.
what? The win didn't help. It didn't help.
That did not
happen.
happen.
Help the net. No, it didn't. Happen. But that is who we are playing on Thursday. So quick turnaround. And honestly, maybe that's one of the, the other stat to come out of this game is you had a lot of your starters play heavy minutes, 38, 32, and that does become a little bit more of a factor when it's a turnaround 2 days later. But we'll see. It shouldn't matter against North Alabama, but we'll see if it does. Lingering questions.
I will say two quick things about North Alabama.
Yes.
One, they've played Morehead State at home and lost by 9. And two, they did go to Kansas State and take Kansas State to overtime earlier in the season.
Great.
So they've done a few things.
Now, outside of that, though, they've only beaten one team that's inside the top 300 at KenPom and not and they've beaten 300 plus KenPom teams and non-Division I teams with one exception. So take that with a grain of salt that they played well on the road against Kansas State, but just only 2 things probably worth knowing at this point.
So I'll just toss this out as a lingering question. We spent a lot of time on this show talking about the biggest lingering question with this program, which is shooting. And look, Mackenzie Mgbako was recruited to be a good shooter. I still think it's going to come around. I have confidence in his shot. Liam McNeely, you went out and you got the best shooter in high school basketball. So it's not like they don't understand this. It's not like they're not trying to get shooters. They've just so far been unsuccessful on some of the guys they've tried to land and then unsuccessful, in terms of really integrating it in the offense. Now, last year the percentage was fine, but, the volume was what we had questions with. This year we're having questions with both. But, my question here is we learn more and more about this staff just by watching what they do, Coach. Is this just doesn't seem to be a staff that really is governed in any meaningful way by analytics. And we can't know that for sure because we're not in the meetings. But there's no evidence that I see that decisions are made with analytics even taking into account. It really seems like a program more that goes off the gut feeling and experience and philosophy of the head coach. And, look, that's why you have your head coach. I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, but I know for me personally, I would like to see a program that demonstrates that it values some of the lessons that analytics have taught, I guess is the way I would say it, and I just don't see it. And I guess that's my lingering question is, will we start to see it with this team this year or moving forward as long, with this staff in place?
I sure hope so. But coaches, it's admirable for coaches to have a philosophy and believe in it and believe they can win with it. That happens all the time. I had that when I coached, and we're stubborn by nature because we believe our way is going to be the way and we're going to fit, square pegs into round holes because we have the magic elixir every time in every coaching meeting, every film session. But the coaches that I think do the very best adapt to the level that they're at, to the roster that they have. And so we're going to see the rest of this year with Mgbako and what do? They are doing some things. To be honest, they are doing some things. There's a staggered double action. They just don't do it enough. They have some plays in for Mgbako to get him shots, but they reside to the post up and the middle ball screen, or now tonight it was a side ball screen out of transition. They heavily believe in that, and no analytics are going to make them change. We're 8-3. doing that. And the bottom line is W's. And we know that there are analytics that influence the seeding and the selection. We understand that. But as a coach, you're preparing for one game and then the next game. And the more of a lingering question for me than the staff is a staff message of their way of playing getting to these kids? Is it effective? We've always thought Woodson was a great communicator, but right now these kids aren't playing the way Woodson wants them to play. That would be that. Is it the message not getting to them, or is it this team is a little disjointed in the locker room? What goes on in practice? What has gone on outside of practice? And there's body language issues. We don't know all that stuff, but right now the lingering question for me is the message, the way Coach Woodson wants them to play, is either not getting communicated accurately or not being received accurately. And that's the key question, because the play has been almost similar for 11 games with a few bumps up in a couple of the games, but it's still the same problems after 2 months, 2.5 months or 2 months of play. So to me, it's, we're going to complain about all that. The non-use of analytics. I agree with you 100%. But even what they want to do, I don't think is being executed very well. And that's where you got to at least execute Coach Woodson's stuff well. And it's not being done, in my opinion. That's the lingering question, is how is that communicated, or how is that being listened to, and when is it being put into play?
Yeah, I mean, to go back to your initial question, it feels unlikely that there's going to be a massive mindset change in that way if in fact that stuff isn't as meaningful to this coaching staff. I mean, it's hard to switch gears even from season to season, let alone you're 11 games into this season. You're more than a third of the way through the season, or maybe about exactly a third of the way through. Like, are you really going to do some of that? Now, maybe you can do it in the sense of substitution patterns and lineup combinations, and some of those things maybe are I think you've seen a little bit of that. Maybe it's not analytically driven over the last couple of games, but you haven't seen part of it. You've only really had 9 guys that you want to play, so you can't do the whole first unit, second unit thing. But I think we've seen a few different things there, probably to mix results. But I mean, I don't think you're going to see a dramatic change in that regard. And I think Coach's point is a good one as well. Just trying to figure out, he took the paint off the walls in the locker room at halftime and sent him back out there pretty fast and said, it wasn't pretty, blah, 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 blah. At some point, you're this deep into the season. Like, should we really be having to have those conversations and those interventions in the middle of the game to do that? Or did it need to happen sooner in the first half to really kind of wake everybody up? And how do you do some of those things? So, I certainly was one that came on here earlier in the season, and you talked about, I think it was after the Michigan win, Woodson really seems to have his pulse on this guy and that guy and this team and whatever. And then you fast forward a couple of games to this, and it's like, well, maybe not. But the games that this team has struggled in the most, it feels like are the games against vastly inferior opponents or super athletic teams. Like, those are kind of the, what the teams you seem like you should beat, and the ones who have all the skill and athleticism to just beat the absolute hell out of you, which is kind of two odd ends of the spectrum, to be honest, as you go through it. Because I think for as good as Kansas is, athletically, they're not overwhelming in the way that UConn and Auburn were. And IU was able to kind of hang around with them and not more than hang around, led the vast majority of the game. But otherwise, it's been teams that you're kind of inferior than. And the only middle, teams were really kind of Kansas, Michigan, Maryland. And Maryland is not performing well at the moment right now either. I'm sure their fan base is handling it just as well as we have. And so it's just kind of an odd mix of where they are at the end of the spectrum. And you got 2 games coming up against teams that you should easily handle. Maybe they can figure out a way to solve that part of the puzzle, but you're not going to have that many games like that the rest of the season. And maybe that's a good thing for this team in the way that they're receiving the coaching and the messaging and those kinds of things, because these are just not games that they've been able to get up for, perform well in for long stretches or anything even close to that.
Hey, 2-0 in the Big Ten, still first place.
great.
Which is
I mean,
why
it's
I will
wild.
add, among the things that Bruce Weber said that were stupid, the only reason that IU is in Mike DeCourcy's bracketology is because they're winning the Big Ten, and he put him in because they're winning the Big Ten. His comment about, they're in his latest bracketology, they should feel good about that, is ridiculously dumb and shows a complete lack of understanding of how that stuff comes together.
Yes, and the last thing I'll say, Coach, to your point, winning is the bottom line. There's no question about it. But how you win does matter. Like, you can say, like, I don't care about the metrics. Don't give me Ken Palm and net and all this stuff. All I care about is winning. Okay, fine. But if you're going to be a team that's around the bubble, which is where Indiana profiles, your metrics are really important. Who you've beaten, what the efficiency stuff looks like. If you're sitting there trying to get an at-large bid and you're 70th in Ken Palm, even if you have 20 wins, but you haven't really beaten anybody, you're not getting in the tournament. So you can poo-poo all this stuff, but like the way that you beat some of these teams does matter. And we can argue about whether or not it should, but it does. And so, yes, beating Morehead State, you got the bare minimum, a 1-point victory, literally the bare minimum that could possibly pass as like the lowest bar for acceptable. But man, there is a big opportunity for, everything else that could have happened tonight. And that's where the disappointment is. And I think there are some fans that don't quite recognize that enough. And that's why we keep trying to say it. Like, it shouldn't matter. At the end of the day, you just want to win the game, yes. But to get where we want to go, there's more to it than that. And plus, a win like this is not very predictive of, doing well against better teams. That's the frustration. So, anyway, check out our friends at Homefield Apparel, homefieldapparel.com. Our promo code is HOME23. Get 15% off your first order. Andy, let's go to you for last call, and then we will close up.
I don't know if there's too much more to beat into the ground with this game. A really poor performance, poor response to what had been a good, a really strong effort against Kansas. I know Coach said after going back and looking at it, maybe he felt worse about it. But the reality is for this team, they had done enough to be in a position to win that game and really let an opportunity slip through their hands. And so many times we get on here and talk about how do you react to this game, that game, this loss, that win, close loss, whatever. This team hasn't shown the ability to respond very well to different situations this year. And I don't think that the blame for that all falls in one place, but that's the reality of who this team has shown itself to be at this point. And so next couple games are chances to, like I said, kind of shake that notion that they can't put away or dominate teams that they should dominate. But otherwise, until further notice, with this team is who they've shown themselves to be. And so there's room for growth. There's talent on the team. There's certainly deficiencies from a roster perspective, some of which are fixed by Xavier Johnson coming back, but not all of which are fixed by Xavier Johnson coming back, depending upon what state he's in and the domino effect that has with other guys. But they just, kudos to them for coming back to find a way to win and avoid abject disaster. But man, it's ugly and, hard to really find the answer to how to get consistency out of this team at a level that they're going to need when Big Ten play begins, because, we're going to beat this into the ground as well. But like the Big Ten season is so incredibly important for a team that has done nothing but avoid disaster in the non-conference. It just is hard to tell yourself a story that they can get it together enough and play consistently enough to do what they're going to need to do in the Big Ten, to do what they're going to need to do in the toughest games that they have. And I sent this to Coach the other day, kind of a breakdown of where future opponents fall within the quads. And you got to look at those and tell yourself, you got to win some really tough road games in the Big Ten to be able to pick up good enough wins to offset what you didn't do in the non-conference, all the while avoiding bad losses, which this team has done narrowly throughout the season. So you really start to look at where these games fall, and then you compare that to the performance of the team. It's tough to get there from the standpoint of what we've seen versus what they need to do. And I would love to be proven wrong, and they have every chance to do that. But this performance obviously doesn't make you feel any better with any misgivings that you have about the team heading into the rest of things. So I will let you guys finish it up. I actually have some work to do. The joy of trying to take time off around the holidays is that you get to work more before them so that you can feel caught
Yes.
up to do it. So I'll listen to the rest. Ryan knows that I think he's wrong about anything he's going to bring up from a scheduling perspective. So there's nothing else that
Just
I
to
need
blanket
to add.
Ryan's wrong for whatever.
And it's
else
fine
he
for
said.
you to be wrong, Andy. It's fine if you want.
Well,
to be
and
wrong,
I will
that's
be wrong
fine.
on other things, but I will not be wrong on this particular topic.
You're
So
wrong.
I will.
It's okay.
I will listen.
But
in
you're
and
you're
figure it
comfortable
out.
with being wrong, which I respect. It's
Oh, God. Mute him again. Just cut
Oh,
his
boy.
mic.
Here we go. All right. Thanks, guys.
Someone just told us in the chat that we've been very depressing tonight, which I think is fair. It's fair, and I know we try not to do that after wins, but I don't know.
how else do you react to that performance? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I've always had a hard time with it. You know, it's the biggest challenge of doing the show is you want to meet the team where they are on every individual game. But when you see stuff that suggests, man, it's really hard to see that this team is going to get, you know, to kind of meet the minimum bar for success for the season, it gets hard. Anyway, Coach, last call.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to we're going to beat this into the ground with the style of play, but I just think they need to play Coach Woodson's style better. That's a start. The way, you know, and so if that comes from the coaching staff or whatever, and I'll also throw in this, Indiana was like 71st in the RPI, the old RPI. The website that I use, you can go see the RPI with the quads. So Indiana is not in a position either the old way without metrics, and I saw some people, I hate offensive and defensive metrics. Right now, where this team is, they're not a tournament team, whether it's the RPI, whatever. But on a positive there, they do have a quad one win in Michigan, although Michigan got beat on the road tonight against Florida, but that's always tenuous with the cutoffs, right, which is another junk thing. But they don't have bad losses, and so if their metrics get better, they have a win, and all their losses are in quad one. So really their resume piece of it isn't bad. It's their metrics that are bringing them down. You're a lot closer in the old RPI than others. So just fix the way you want them to play, Coach Woodson, and players play the way Coach Woodson wants you. That gives us at least a chance to win some basketball games. There's going to be style arguments left and right from this person and that person, and that's what makes college sports kind of fun. And we're not in there to understand the film and who can do what. But just play better within the style that's being run. And the last few games, even though there have been some positives, the decision-making, the forced shots, the overhelp, the sloppy ball handling at times. Play better within the system that the coach wants you to run, and coach them better. You get tired of hearing how many humps you got to get them over. Start getting them over them. Like, it's 11 games worth of humps that you got to get over. It's just time in year 3 to be better. And in a year of I feel bad because it's a rebuilding year in my mind because you lose 4 starters. But with NIL and the transfer portal, is there ever really an acceptable rebuilding year now? When you're paying these guys money and you're doing this, the expectations are to play a certain type of basketball. In the old ways, you would understand this year's going to be a tough year because you're replacing people. You got young freshmen who are going to play better. All of that makes sense to me, why this team is struggling, if you want to look at it from a positive standpoint. If you want to look at it in year 3 with all the resources, that's when it starts getting to be frustrating. That's where I'm at. And I keep going back and forth, people. I'm struggling. I want to be fair and understand it's young team gelling with the fact that in this era, people are rebuilding quickly and a lot quicker. And should we expect that here at Indiana? So there's the two sides, and it's just kind of it's hard being a fan right now of where you want to sit in praising or criticizing and evaluating this program. But it just needs to be better no matter where you're at.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm going to be really short on this. Indiana just has to be better. Like, if you're wearing that jersey, you have to be better. And whether that's this game or the other, non-conference games against worse teams, you saw this team could play with Kansas. There's no excuse to come out and play like this. And there's no excuse. And that's not just on the players. People are blaming the players for lack of effort and blah, blah, blah. They were not ready to play. And I don't know what's going on, but that's on the program. And I think that a lot of times we get caught up in, is it the coach? Is it the players? Is it the assistants? Is it this? Is it whatever? It's the program that's the problem, and that's everybody associated with it. And Jared, you said something after the Kansas game. You said the fan support deserves better than this. And that is 1,000% true.
Agreed.
The fans who support this program, whether it's watching us, late into the night on a random Tuesday, or it's the people who are there cheering and spending their hard-earned money to go, they deserve better than what this program has given them over the past decade and longer, but specifically over the past decade. They deserve better. And I mean, it's just, that's what my thought is when I watch a game like this, is how has it taken this long and we're still not a viable program? I mean, it's good if you want to be an average Big Ten program, which is what Indiana is right now. What's it going to take to get this to be an elite Big Ten program again? What do you need to do? Is it coaching? Is it different players? Is it more money? Like, what is it? What do you have to do? A new arena? I don't know. What will get the people in place to be an elite program? Because Indiana can't have nights like this. It just can't. And there have been too many of these over the years, whether it's they win it or not. You can't look like a bad team this often. And whether it's you're playing a great team and get blown out like Auburn, or it's a night where you should beat this team by 20 points and you barely squeeze, you need a 20-4 run to sneak by. That's not worthy of Indiana basketball. And it's not worthy of the fan support. And those people who pay their money to watch this deserve better. Program has to be better. And it's long past time for it to get there.
It's a really good point. In a vacuum, you have one performance like this. Okay, and you escape with a win. We escape with a victory. The problem is this comes on the heels of getting blasted by Connecticut and Auburn and playing like this in other games where you just had to sneak by. Like, this performance tonight was not the anomaly. If that was an anomaly, we'd be on here, okay, bad performance, but man, there were a couple positives from it. Okay, let's just forget this happened. You can't forget this happened. This is who this team is right now. And that's the frustrating part. And, Coach, to your point about it is a rebuilding year and all that stuff, and this is now our 12th year doing the show, and we always, as I said earlier, we always try to meet the team where they're at. I'm just getting tired of the excuses. Like, there's always excuses. Okay, well, it's Archie's first year. Oh, now it's COVID, and now it's this, and now it's that. And, there's always something. Like, real programs don't constantly have excuses. They just have a standard, and you just play to it. And, yeah, maybe for this season we shouldn't be expecting a 4 seed, but we shouldn't be off the bubble, which is close to where we are right now. We shouldn't be going long stretches of games against sub 150 teams looking incoherent. That's the problem, And so even on a night when the result that you get is acceptable, and you're going to take a win anytime you can get it, there's still, fans had to sit through that for 2 hours, and it just doesn't suggest a lot of good things moving forward. Now, look, last year, we'll all recall, we came on here after that loss to Penn State. Indiana's 1-4 in conference play, and it's like, oh my God, the wheels are falling off. And they turned it around and they got going. All is not lost. It's December 19th. We thought this team was going to struggle. We just didn't expect it to be this much, and we didn't expect it to look this poorly or to look this poor. And so that's where the frustration comes from. But look, you come out, you play a good game Thursday and win that game by 15 or 20 points. Everybody can exhale a little bit. Then we start to move forward. The problem is this team just hasn't shown us that they can do it yet. Hopefully they can and start building some positive momentum. Anthony Walker, I saw, he said in his postgame press conference, this isn't going to happen again, and he's a senior, and so I hope that's the case. But this team just has to keep getting better. They've avoided disaster, and that's good. So they've given themselves a chance still to achieve all the goals that they want to have in front of them. They're just going to have to play a lot better than they did tonight, and hopefully that starts Thursday. Okay, that'll do it. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. Don't forget to go to our Substack. You can get there by just going to our URL, www.assemblycall.com, and get on our free newsletter because we're constantly sending out good stuff there. Special thank you to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show. Special thank you to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logo. And, of course, thank you for listening. We'll be back Thursday to talk IU hoops again with you, or to talk IU hoops again after North Alabama. Until then.
Take it from me, Max Bielfeldt. Keep your calves flexed, your elbows in, and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
Shoot the ball.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Mrs. Tonsoni's not in the mood after that performance, Coach. Sorry. not playing that one.
Coach definitely isn't in the mood. Isn't in the mood. My God.
All right. Well,
Not gonna happen, fellas.
Avoided disaster. Man.
There was one thing real quick in the chat. Someone said, I don't know if they're still here. Like, are we going to all of a sudden say they're an NCAA team if they blow North Alabama out by 20? No, we're going to be happy that they finally played well.
Played to where they're supposed to.
And I apologize if you think that we just come on when we play bad and act like this, and then we play good. We think they're NCAA. I think that's a false narrative of us, but you're entitled to your opinion. We wish you still stick around and give us a fair shot at changing that. But
I'd say, we felt
this has
better.
been a pattern now for 11 games for the most part, short of a couple positives. And you can still appreciate a coach and appreciate a program and have some criticism. We need more guards. We need better athletes. We're in year 3. The expectations, as you said, Jared, rebuilding year or not, are to be better. And we don't apologize for that. We get enough crap about being fanboys all the time, but we are. But we also want a certain standard. So whoever that was, we apologize if we sent that kind of message tonight, but this was not a good performance, and we're going to come on here and talk about it.
Let me say something real quick. After Maryland and Michigan, we all said, you know what? We kind of feel better about where this is heading. We kind of feel a little bit better about where it's heading because they took care of business. Those two teams aren't playing well, didn't shoot well, but Indiana did what it could do and stole a road win and all that. It feels great. Then they got their doors kicked in by Auburn, and you're like, whoa, okay. So maybe it's more those teams than it is what Indiana's able to do, or maybe it's just this kind of matchup is bad. Then you come out, you play Kansas tight. Quite frankly, you blow that game. I think they should have won it given where it was. Now Kansas
by double digits.
Yeah, up 13 in the second half and lose at Assembly Hall. That's tough. But you do still say, like, look, Kansas is great. They played them well. It didn't last. They looked tired at the end of that game because a lot of guys played a lot of minutes and they kind of broke down defensively, and Kansas was able to score easily. But you got to follow that up by playing well. You can't lose 2 games in a row like that in disappointing fashion and not show up to beat a team that you should dominate. Like, yeah, the last 3 games have probably changed our opinion again from where it was before that. And we always said we're not going to know who this team is probably until the beginning of January. We're still trying to figure it out, just like the rest of you. Just like it looks like, just like the guys on this roster are trying to figure it out.
And we want to believe. So when we see, so to the person's point, I will say, I bet sometimes it does feel like there's a bit of a pendulum swing, which is what this show is designed to be. It's living in the emotion of the moment right after a game. It's always going to be a little more emotional. And then the Thursday show is meant to take kind of more of the macro picture. And so there are going to be some of those swings, especially with a team like this. We want to buy in. We want to believe. So you go on the road against Michigan where you don't care about style points. You don't care about anything. In that game,
just win. All
that matters is the result. That is it. This game tonight, it was more than just the result. How you played needed to be better than this. And that's why you're going to get those swings. That's part of that's just, it's a feature, not a bug. Like, that is what this show is supposed to be about. But
some people really like it. Okay.
No, and someone's saying that person was trying to make a joke about that and wasn't real serious. So I just wanted to make sure that fan knew that we're trying to.
But other people,
what we're trying to do.
They do.
Yeah, it's okay. I like to give people just an insight into how we think and how we approach it. So it's fine. And everybody's entitled to your opinion. I don't get mad.
If you think we have wild swings on the air, you should see the texts we send each other during games. I mean. It goes from I'm going to throw my TV in the ocean to I can't believe they won, like within 10 minutes.
I will say this. I think the scheduling was kind of an issue tonight for Indiana. They shouldn't have scheduled.
You want to let me explain this or what?
I just think when you play a tough game like at Kansas, you got to have like at least 4 days off to recuperate.
Okay.
That's just my initial
at least
thought.
2 weeks, Coach.
Here is my stance on this. You knew coming into this season what this team was. It was going to be very young, inexperienced, a bunch of leadership guys in roles that maybe didn't, know what they were doing, hadn't been leaders before necessarily with X and Galloway. You knew this was going to be a very young team. Young teams are very emotional. You scheduled Kansas for Saturday, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I think it was a great game, great atmosphere, all of that. You know there's going to be a letdown after that. Yes, we know that for a fact. That
Jared
happened.
even predicted it, Ryan.
There you
in
go.
Our text, right? I'm telling you.
And you give them what is essentially one day off, because yesterday they probably practiced, but Sunday they had the day off. You give them 2 days to go from that insane high to having to play down to a bad opponent. And anybody who is shocked with how they came out is ridiculous. I give them, after that big game, I give them until you have a game Thursday. I have no problem with you having a game Thursday after that big game on Saturday. But why are you forcing 3 games in 6 days the week after finals, especially when one of those was against the number 2 team in the country? I don't get that scheduling. I'm sorry. 3 games in 6 days is too much for a team that's still trying to figure itself out. This isn't the tournament. This isn't March where this team is what it is and it's set in concrete. This team was always going to take a long time to get together, and you are smashing 3 games in 6 days, one of which was going to be a tough game with a lot of emotion attached to it. I think it's stupid scheduling to do this the week after finals to smash 3 games together in 6 days. I think it's dumb. And I think that anybody that was surprised with the way they came out is being ridiculous. I'm shocked. Now, look.
So,
go ahead.
Can we rebut now, please?
Well, I'm going to say one more thing because you said this.
No, he's convinced me. I'm with Ryan.
No, you guys aren't going to
change
convince
my
me.
mind.
Fine.
No, you're not.
I'm explaining my.
The audio
my
people
point.
can't see the smile on your face. Don't make them think that.
Here's the thing, though.
Totally
Jared,
buy in. Makes
Jared
sense.
Jared said to me in a text in this, he's like, "Hey, real programs can handle things like that. Show me when Indiana is a quote unquote real program that can handle things like that." Okay, I mean, but here's the thing about this season. This is what I'll say about this season. The most important thing about this season is making the damn tournament, right? We didn't expect a whole lot more than that.
You should be able to play Morehead State and North Alabama Monday and Tuesday after Kansas and still find a way to win. If you're going to be a real
is
program
great.
The tournament.
Should be is great. Tell me when they are able to do that, because they're not.
Your logic is backwards. Okay, look, you know how much I respect you as a co-host. You know it. This is the worst take you've ever had on the show. It's the worst take.
Oh,
it's the worst take you've had.
Mr.
On the show.
Positive.
Here's why. They're just coming off a week of not playing with finals. All right,
but it's not like they weren't doing anything and resting. They had finals.
Okay, but they're not playing 39 minutes.
Some
of
them probably
game.
didn't.
So what I'm saying
is, they played 37.
Look,
2 days ago.
They played the early game Saturday. Okay. They had Sunday, they had Monday. This game is in the evening. So they had 72 hours in between games.
Against a team that's had this game circled for months.
Now look, I fully expected that there would be a letdown. I fully expected it because that's what this program has done. That doesn't mean I excuse it.
I'm not excusing it either.
But this program has just shown us they're not ready for that. So to use the scheduling
which is my point
as an excuse, no, but you're using the schedule. You're saying, well, they shouldn't have done this and all this stuff, but it shouldn't
I don't think
matter.
You should put 3 games.
What I'm saying is, it shouldn't even be a topic of discussion. They had 2 days in between games. They should have approached it better. There's no reason for this to be a topic of discussion.
Here's the thing: if it was 3 crappy teams or below sub 100 teams, that would be different. But coming off the Kansas game, which you knew was going to be difficult, which we knew was going to be physical, awful, and a huge emotional roller coaster for them.
Sure.
To put him back out there on Tuesday, I think was a mistake. And then they get 1 day off and they got to play again. I think it's stupid. I think you're setting that team up to fail, given what you know that this team's going to be months ago. We knew it during the summer.
Okay, but we could also flip that around and say, well, this is something we've struggled with. So now here's an opportunity for us to work on it, guys. We've struggled to come down from these emotional games and then get back up. So let's
with
work
what
on
the
it
non-conference is this year, you could not afford to lose a non-Auburn, Kansas, UConn.
And if you're Indiana, you shouldn't assume you're going to lose to Morehead State no matter what. That's what I mean.
If you're normal Indiana, if you're normal Indiana, not this team, though.
So how are we going to get to be normal Indiana by having these piss poor low expectations?
Well, that's a very long conversation,
because the program is just
Jared.
rising to the level of our expectation then. So, or falling to the depths of our lack of expectation.
They just proved me right by playing absolutely garbage on a Tuesday night.
They didn't prove you right because your contention is that the mistake is the schedule and this should be What they proved is that they can't handle coming back and playing 72 hours later after a big game.
Which is, I'm
should have
shocked
taken
anyone was
confidence.
expected. I'm shocked anybody was expected.
I wasn't, but that's the problem. But that's
that's
not
what
the
I was
schedule's
saying is
fault.
why is
That's
anybody
the
expecting them to
program's
play
fault.
well 72 hours after this? And again,
Because
you
they're
guys were
Indiana
saying,
basketball, Ryan, and they should be able to play better.
Did you
That's
really
why.
expect them to come out?
No, I texted you. But that's
Exactly.
not because
You're
of the
proving my
schedule.
point.
I am not proving your point. That's not proving your point.
No,
My
here's
point is
the
that is
thing.
a problem with the program, not the schedule.
I think the scheduling is part of the problem with the program. I think they're setting kids up to fail. I think the system sets kids up
That
to
is
fail. I think the
so
recruiting is
low
setting them
on
up to
the-
fail.
on-
I think all of it. I think it's a piece of the whole. That's the thing. You're thinking what you guys are picking up on is that I'm saying the schedule is the reason they played like garbage. It's not. It's part of the whole of being thoughtless with the way you're aligning your program. This is a December game that you should have time to prepare for. It was a team that was picked to win its conference, who had already been on several big road games. Now they didn't play well, but they weren't going to be cowed by playing at Assembly Hall without the students there. And you're throwing them in this game directly after you've had guys play 35 plus minutes a game. The starters were all dead. Now, you can say that, they just came out flat. Partially they did. I agree. They just came out flat. They weren't interested. It was a letdown game. On top of that, they also some of them also looked exhausted because they probably are.
Why are we the only team that we make this excuse for? Oh, our guys.
They're
played
not the
35,
only one I
36
would say
minutes.
that about. A young team in the NCAA doing this, I would say that's incredibly this would be average, but I'm saying you knew what this team was going to be. This team doesn't have Trace Jackson Davis. It doesn't have Race Thompson. It doesn't have Miller Kopp. It doesn't have
what's
that
an okay
leadership.
amount of time? Would an extra day?
I would have
been
said
okay?
Thursday. I would have had no game today and just played on Thursday. I'm not
I
saying
just
give
think
them
there
2
are so many
weeks.
concerns with the program.
You're
Spending
right.
This much time talking about the impact of the schedule.
You're
It
absolutely
just doesn't
right.
even compute to me, though.
No, to me, it's just another thing in the program that is thoughtless, that is not well thought out. And I think that when it comes down to it, you can do better for these kids. You don't put them in bad positions already.
They had 70. I just okay.
You're
maybe
saying
if they were-
72 hours.
If they were playing
Okay.
Monday, maybe that's a little bit different, and I would give a little credence to this. But they had plenty of time to come back, rest their bodies.
They had
prepare
one
for Morehead
practice
State.
for a team that had been practicing for them for several days, and it is picked to win its conference. I know they're missing a really good player, but
I mean, if we have to be this worried and set up our whole schedule to beat Morehead
I think you
State,
have to
then
be
we
worried.
have some major ass
No.
problems.
I think you have to be worried about not dropping a non-conference game that could knock you out of the NCAA tournament ahead of time,
Again,
because you know
if
early
we
in
have
the
to
season-
worry about that with
You
Morehead
do
State,
have to
we
worry
bigger
about that,
problems.
because if you miss the tournament this year, the program takes a huge step back. Would you not agree with that? We're
yes,
back to
but
Archie
it wouldn't
Miller.
be because of the schedule.
No, I'm saying you have to protect those games and make sure you are in the best
They had
position to win them.
but that's what I'm saying. They had 72 hours.
I don't-
They had
I
plenty of
just
time to
disagree.
prepare for this game.
I
It's
disagree.
just-
I just
I
think
just
you
don't
were,
think it's a
again,
meaningful argument for
I do.
this performance.
I think that how much these kids are playing, which is, I mean, they shouldn't have to play 35 plus minutes or 30 plus minutes to win this game. I fully agree with that. But if you're playing 37 minutes against Kansas, what do Cups play like 39? And then you're expecting him to come out a couple days later in a game that's going to be a letdown game and have a great game. Like, it's not going to happen. We know that.
They didn't even need to have a great game. They just need.
I
to
know
have
they
like
didn't,
A B
but then
game.
but when they were okay, I'll just say in the first half when they were playing the way they were playing, I was like, yeah, I mean, who expected?
Okay,
Who expected?
Let me. Here's the problem I have with your argument. Like, and it's not to say that I don't think that you shouldn't schedule smartly. Those are important things to think about. Okay. The problem I have with your argument is it seems like another excuse that we're stacking on top of stuff for why this program can't reach not even a peak level, but just a
Again.
really good level. And I just don't think it matters.
You're missing
That's what I'm
that,
saying.
though.
Real programs don't talk about this kind of stuff.
You're right,
They
because
just go
Indiana
beat
isn't
Morehead
there
State.
yet. We
But
all
we're not
know
gonna
Indiana
get
isn't there yet.
If that's not what the standard is,
No,
is what I'm
they're
saying.
going to get there when they recruit the best players, when they have the best system, and they're able to win consistently at a certain level. Until then, you have to make the tournament every year until you get there. And if you set yourself up to lose games, you're not going to make the tournament, and you're going to take a huge step backward. That's my point, is that you have to protect yourself in a season.
And if we have to worry about 1 or 2 days after, length after the Kansas game. We shouldn't. If that's
I'm
a big
saying
deal,
this season
we're not
was always
going to
be
anyway.
I'm saying this season was always going to be a tightrope with the way you scheduled the non-conference with very difficult games, which I approve of. But you also have to smartly schedule around that to ensure that you're not dropping a game you cannot afford to drop. And I thought this was too close to the Kansas game. I thought they should have done it midweek or Thursday. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. Now, look, it's my opinion.
We don't even know. Maybe there were constraints that they had to schedule it.
It's possible, but if that's the situation, move the game. Move it earlier in the season. Do something. Because you're not stacking it after another crap non-conference game. You're smashing it together with a big game, and then you got another one. You got one day, and then you're going to go to another one. And they expended a lot of energy tonight. That's the problem. Is that you're smashing them all together. This game on Thursday could have been Friday, could have been next week. There's
or it
ways
could have
to
been
do
Monday,
this.
And we still should win anyway. That's what
I agree.
mean.
They
So
should win anyway, Jared. But I'm just saying that the thing is, with how fragile this team was always going to be, you've got to take that into consideration when you're scheduling. That's it. By the way, those texts are never going to be public. They're never going to be public.
It was basically this.
Well, there's other stuff too that. No, look,
right.
I get it.
We can agree to disagree on this.
You don't agree, that's fine. But I'm just saying that.
You know what it is, though? But, okay, here's the thing. I'm surprised that this is your take. Because you so often are a no excuse, no BS guy. And
I am a no excuse.
But this strikes me as a BS thing to worry about. That's why I'm surprised.
What you're missing is I'm saying this is a symptom of the problems with the program. And things are not well thought out. And it's the system not valuing shooting. It's not attacking the right guys in the portal. It's not, it's leaving a scholarship open because, we'll use that later.
Yeah.
When
I agree with all that stuff.
No, but that's what I'm saying is I think
1 or 2 extra days in the schedule
think it's
for
a
Morehead
symptom.
State.
I think it's a symptom of a thoughtless program. And it's a symptom of we need to worry about smashing as many games in as we can here to get experience and whatever, and money as well, coach, and not thinking about how to set a fragile team up to make the tournament the best way. That I just think it's a symptom of the whole. What else this team could use to advance the tournament? Another shooter that you could have picked up in the transfer portal instead of but I'm saying
those are 2 totally different things.
No, I think, you're right, they are, but I'm saying it's a symptom of an entire program that doesn't think things through and that isn't willing to think in a different way. And last year, you could have challenged that team with anything. They had the veterans. They could have gone, these comments, coach. You could have challenged that team with anything. Last year, I don't care that they played a couple days after the Kansas game. They had Trace Jackson Davis. They had, Miller Kopp. They had Race Thompson. Those guys have been multi-year starters in the Big Ten. They were fine. But I don't get doing that to this young, inexperienced team that you didn't know what you're going to get out of. We still don't know what we're going to get out of this team. And you're expecting them to handle a lot of stress early in the season. And I don't think it's a good idea. I'm sorry. I don't. And people are saying, well, they had a week off. They had a week for finals. It's not like rest time. It's not like they had a bye week and did nothing.
It rests your body. You're not, you're not putting
you were
all
probably
those minutes
pulling
on your
all-nighters to study and stuff. It's not like healthy time. Come on, you went to college.
All right, look, I'm not going to agree. I'm not going to disagree.
Fine. I didn't
that
expect
there aren't
you
some things. No, that there aren't some things in the program that need to be thought out better. That is true. I just would not conflate these 2 things.
I just think it's, and again, I'm not saying it's the main reason. I'm not saying it's the only reason. I'm just saying, what did you expect? What did you expect? It was going to be a letdown game.
But to me, it would have been a letdown whether it's Tuesday, Thursday, next week.
I agree.
So that's what I mean. So the days between the game.
I think it was exacerbated by this, especially with this roster. I think that has a lot to do with it. So that's me. That's my opinion. It's what I saw. I think that they looked exhausted in the first half. They picked it up. Beginning of the second half was fine, but then I think they lost that second win for a while, and then I think the crowd lifted them to a win. I didn't expect the crowd to lift them to a win either because the students aren't there, which I think makes it even worse. So
this is longer than Oppenheimer.
It's getting there, Bryce. It's been. The show's been almost 2 hours. If we go another hour and a half, we'll beat it. But. All right, that's it. I'm spent.
Done. No more questions.
Yeah, no more questions. I don't think it was smartly done. And
That's
honestly,
it.
I think Thursday is going to be interesting.
Well, yeah,
a lot
but
of.
Thursday's going to be interesting, not because of the schedule, because this team makes these games.
I think it's good. Well, I think they expended a lot of energy tonight. They don't have a couple days off. They have one day, and then they got to play again.
Expended a lot of it. Like we just make so many excuses for this program.
I'm not making excuses. I'm blaming the program.
But they expended energy, so now Thursday is going to be a challenge against North Alabama.
It's one day off.
I think that's
stupid I think one day off is stupid at any point. Like. And the other thing is you can control this schedule. It's not being thrust upon you. It's not conference. It's not the NCAA tournament. You control this, and this is what you chose. And I don't love that. Sorry. I think you're asking for trouble is all I would say. So,
as a guy who loves to hear himself talk, I've had the most fun being silent for the last 15 minutes as I've ever had in my entire life.
Your facial expressions are what it was.
Wow, we still have 480 some people, and their comments have been fantastic. While you two yahoos have been going, you two yahoos were just going like two brothers. Like, do I have to stop this car? If I have to stop this car, you're both going to get in trouble.
To everyone listening and watching, I sincerely apologize. This could have been a phone call. All right, that's it. We're done. We should end.
We're done. I have nothing else to say. But
that was fantastic.
I
if
really
that
don't
doesn't
know if
get
I'm
us
ready for the North Alabama game. I mean, I can only sleep twice between now and then. I only have
if this doesn't get us a damn Big Lead Podcast Award, Big League Podcast Award for this damn show.
Yes,
I'm not even talking to you, Ryan. This was fantastic.
Worthless segment in podcast history.
Probably
right here.
Probably.
Hey, the chat mob's still around. They drive. We're gonna. You know what, chat mob? If Andy were here, you would see Andy was on a roll today. He ripped me about going to Notre Dame Virginia game, about restraining order. You know, like when Andy comes out of the woods with some humor and some attacks, and then he was all over Ryan in the text. I wish we could.
Andy.
I mean, Andy was
stronger
brutal.
than the two of us were.
He made my opening rant look like soft in these text messages.
He did. And that's always Andy, though. He gets on the air very calm, but he's
San Diego chicken.
People would be shocked sitting and watching a game with Andy. They would be absolutely shocked.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It is the best.
It is fun. All right. We're done. We did it. We pained these people enough with our yammering. Mostly me.
And our poor program that has to turn around and play a game with only one day of rest. Oh, no.
Good night, Jared.
Let it go. Let it go. Elsa needs to be here. Let it go. I can't even sing. I can't sing for shit, but I want to sing Let It Go. It's time to go get some pie or something. Snacks.
Yeah, it is
cereal.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. Ryan. We'll see you.
Coach. See you guys all later. Uh-oh.
That wasn't good. I'm out.
I'm out.